It began as an escape, a chance for a husband and wife to put distance between themselves and the endless hum of the city. They had argued too often, grown too weary of the routines that swallowed them whole. A weekend in the countryside, far from traffic, far from people, seemed like the perfect remedy. They drove for hours, following narrow roads that twisted like veins through the forest. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. No villages, no scattered farms, only endless trees rising like blackened spires against the fading light. When at last they reached the house, it stood waiting at the forest's edge, half swallowed by shadow. It was old, older than it had any right to be, its stones damp, its timbers sagging with age. A place forgotten by time, yet still holding on, as though the earth itself refused to reclaim it. The husband carried their bags inside. The air was stale, heavy with dust and something faintly metallic, like rust or dried blood. The floor groaned under every step, as if the house were aware of their intrusion. They told themselves it was nothing more than age, just wood settling, just air shifting. But the house was listening. That first night, they lit candles. The glow was weak, struggling against the dark that pressed in from every corner. The wife slept fitfully, twisting in the sheets, whispering words her husband could not understand. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling beams, certain he heard footsteps in the hall. Not once, not twice, but over and over, moving from one end of the corridor to the other. When he finally rose to check, there was nothing. Only silence, only shadows. By morning, the forest was cloaked in mist, heavy and pale, curling against the windows like smoke. The husband explored the downstairs rooms while the wife wandered the halls above. It was then she found it, the locked door at the end of the corridor. Old, swollen with damp, scarred with deep gouges, as though something had tried to claw its way out. She lingered before it longer than she meant to. She could feel the cold seeping from beneath the threshold, colder than the rest of the house, like a breath against her skin. Her husband called her away, and she went, but she did not forget. That day passed slowly. By the second night, the unease grew heavier. The candles sputtered without reason, and the walls creaked as though a weight pressed against them. The wife woke more than once to find herself sitting upright in bed, her eyes fixed on the window, though she remembered none of it by morning. The husband's eyes grew hollow from lack of sleep. He began to dread the coming of night. The third evening, the house grew restless. The forest was silent. No wind, no insects, no life at all. The silence was thick, suffocating, as though the trees themselves leaned close to listen. It was deep in the night when the wife rose from bed, her steps slow, deliberate, like someone moving in a dream. The husband followed, though he felt no control over his own body. It was as though invisible hands guided him forward. She stopped at the locked door at the end of the corridor. Without hesitation, she placed her hand upon it, and the door opened, not by her hand, not by his. It simply opened, slow and steady, as if the house itself had decided the time had come. Inside was a room long hidden from light. The air was foul, damp, carrying the stench of rot. The walls were blackened with soot. The floor bore deep burns, as though fire had tried and failed to consume it. In the center stood a chair, its wood splintered, its legs warped by heat. And from the ceiling hung a rope, frayed but still whole, swaying gently though no wind stirred. The wife stepped forward, her eyes locked on the rope. The husband tried to call her back, but no sound left his lips. Something pressed against him, cold and heavy, pinning him where he stood. And then he saw them. Figures. Dozens of them, peeling themselves from the walls, their shapes pale, translucent, their faces hollow, mouths stretched wide in silent screams. They did not look at him. They looked only at her. They pressed closer, shadows within shadows, crowding around the chair, the rope, their eyeless faces lifted in expectation. The wife's body moved as if guided by unseen hands. She stepped toward the chair. Her lips parted, and though no words came out, Her husband felt the air shift, as if she were answering a question he could not hear. Panic filled him. He fought against the weight holding him still, but the shadows tightened their grip. He could do nothing. But watch. The rope swayed harder now. The figures leaned close. And then he saw her face. She was smiling. The last candle in the hall sputtered out. Darkness consumed everything. And in that suffocating black, the husband understood. The house was not haunted by the dead. The house was the haunting. It had always been waiting, patient and hungry for someone to take her place. And now it had chosen. When dawn came, the forest sang again. The mist lifted. The birds returned. But the windows of the old house reflected more than the morning light. If one looked closely, too closely, there were shapes behind the glass. Pale shapes. Silent. Watching. And in the reflection, there was always one more shadow than there should have been.